name is Gary Snyder. I'm a Vietnam War veteran. I'm 79 years old now, and proud to be an American.
So, you served during the Vietnam War?
Yes, I did.
What made you decide to enlist in the military? And at what
Our
age
families had a long history of serving in the military, and I figured it was my opportunity to carry on that tradition. So I enlisted in the Air Force. A lot of people said, why Air Force? Why not Marines or Army or Navy? And I said, well, because I qualified high enough on the test to make my own decisions.
How old were you when you enlisted? Did you
I was
enlist?
18.
So while in high school or after high school?
I graduated from high school in June of '65 and went to basic training in January of '66 and ended up on my first tour in Vietnam in February of 1967 at Cam Ranh Bay.
Okay. So went back up a little bit to basic training. How did that start and how did that end up unfolding for you?
Basic training, we flew out of Cleveland Airport with all the other inductees for the Air Force. My buddy Jack Chapman was supposed to be my enlisted buddy for our tour together, which didn't work out. When we graduated from basic training to go on to our next schooling, he left at 2:30 in the morning and went to an air traffic control school, and I left at about 6 o'clock in the morning and went to Shepherd Air Force Base for jet engine repair and to be a crew chief on an F-4.
So did you guys both choose to do that? Or did you guys both choose to do that, or were you kind of pushed away from each
It
other?
depended on your qualifications with your testing when you first went in. I don't know if Jack wanted to be an air traffic controller or not, but that's where he got slotted in. I found out I was going to be a jet mechanic when I left basic training to go to tech school. I adapted to that and got through schooling and then went to my first permanent base in MacDill Air Force Base in Florida.
So you enlisted. I know that there was the draft was going on at that time. I'm sure people now don't really understand what a draft would be, especially my age and younger. Do you want to explain some parts that you know about that?
Yeah, the draft was going on during the Vietnam War, big time. I didn't really want to wait for the draft. I enlisted, and after I got my papers to report to basic training, I got a letter in the mail from the draft board saying I had been drafted and I need to go to Fort Hays in Columbus to take a physical. And I called my recruiter in Worcester, told him about it, and he said, don't worry about it, just take the bus down with the rest of the guys, take the test, and when it's over, tell them you're already enlisted and you're going to basic training, and that's it.
So,
and that's how it happened.
So the guys that enlisted versus the guys that got drafted, did they get any say in the job they got put into, or was it just kind of
They got put into where they were either needed or the military felt that they wanted them to be, depending on your qualifying test on your entrance exams.
So if you enlisted, you kind of had a little more say on what you'd be doing?
Yes.
That's good. So after you got to Cam Ranh Bay, that was your first deployment?
Yes, it was.
How did that unfold?
It was strange. We landed in Tan Son Nhut Airport in Saigon first, overnighted there, got mortared and rocketed that night, which was a real thrill. Went on to the next morning by C-130 to Cameron Bay and landed there about midday. It was pretty brutal out, very hot, very stinky. The heat hit you like a big hammer when you stepped off the plane, and I knew we were in deep trouble then. But we adapted to that, went in through in processing, got our equipment we needed, headed to our squadron areas where we're going to be billeted at, and kind of settled in there. First few days were hectic to figure out where everything was at, but we were issued everything we needed. We at that time we were still having meals outside and in canvas tents because they didn't have any buildings built yet for the chow halls or anything like that. So we used the old style of mess kits, poured everything in your mess kit. Everything was steel, had a steel coffee cup with a handle on, boiling hot coffee, powdered eggs, powdered milk, the usual Army stuff. Really hangs with you. And after it's over, scrape your plate in the trash can and dip it in boiling water and clean it up and close it up for the next day.
So, what was your job when you were first deployed, and did you get sent out on any missions during your first deployment, or was it more sticking to the base? And
my first deployment was to the 391st Fighter Squadron. I was made a assistant crew chief on a plane, and when you're assistant crew chief, you take care of everything on the plane, make sure it's ready to fly, make sure it's loaded with the right armament, and go from there. You answer to the crew chief and the pilots when they come out. And you're 18 years old and they give you a $40 million aircraft to take care of, and back in the States you couldn't even buy a beer.
yeah,
But you adapted and overcame and did your job.
yeah. So, how many deployments did you end up going out on?
I had 3 tours in Vietnam.
3.
Original was from February of '67 through the end of '67. Then '68 started, and we had the Tet Offensive started in January of '68. That's when the North Vietnamese attacked every base in the south at one time, just a big synchronized battle. They lost a lot of soldiers. Of course, we did too, but it caught everybody off guard. And I remember we were getting mortared and rocketed. Small arms fire was coming in. We had Puff the Magic Dragon flying around, spraying the area, get the ones that got through the barbed wire.
And was that Agent Orange? Or was that later down the road?
Puff the Magic Dragon,
Yeah.
it was a C-47 equipped with miniguns on the side, Gatling guns,
Okay.
and they would fly around and spray the area on the ground.
So I know in Vietnam that's when guerrilla warfare really started to become a big
Yes.
thing. So it made me want to talk about Agent Orange. And is that what you guys used
Agent Orange was used dramatically all over South Vietnam. I don't believe it was ever used in North Vietnam. They were sprayed by C-47s, C-130s, helicopters, stuff like that to disperse it.
Did you deploy any of it? 'Cause I know you've had some issues caused from Agent Orange.
Agent Orange is the defoliant. For most purposes, defoliates the trees, kills the vegetation so you can see from the air down through to see where the enemy's at, see where they're moving. It also has a poison agent that kills crops to deprive the enemy of food. And it is in different stages, different amounts, different types of Agent Orange. And it goes into the ground. It contaminates the water, contaminates the food. It's in the air, you breathe it in. It gets in the rivers. You drink the water from the rivers. And it gets into your body. It lays in your fat cells in your body for years and years and years, and then it decides, like the evil bandit, to come out and spread its death everywhere. It starts out with diabetics, neuropathy, skin problems, cancers, you name it, it comes out with.
So
And
it
it can be passed down through generation to generation to generation with diseases.
So did you have to deploy any of it, being a pilot?
No, I didn't have to deploy any of it.
No.
We had it on base. We could see where they would load it up in the planes and take off, and they would fly around and spread it. And it was a nasty stuff. Agent Orange has probably killed more veterans that combat did.
Yeah, I know a lot of veterans that have had a lot of issues due to that.
Right.
So during your deployments, did you have any experience in live combat situations?
A few times when we would get attacked with mortars and rockets, we fought back. After a while, I was sent to Benoit Air Base as a temporary duty crew chief on an A-37, which is a smaller jet fighter. While there, I got to fly with the 118th Aviation Battalion out of Lyke in Benoit, and I was a substitute door gunner, and we had several Harrier experiences there that come to mind all the time for me. One was we were dropping off a Green Beret captain between bases. He was coming back from R&R, and we were flying him into a forward base. We flew over, was about to touch down. A mortar came in and hit a 105 howitzer crew, killed all of them. He jumped out and headed for the hooch. We went airborne out of the way. I hope he made it. But that was the first I saw guys get killed in combat. And that was through that mortar strike. But we got out of there, and we ended up going up the northern part of South Vietnam. And we flew into a base camp. There was an army base, and we flew in to refuel and to eat. And when we landed, we were sitting there in the edge of the jungle in their chopper. And I looked out, and there was a South Vietnamese sentry walking guard duty around the base. And one shot rang out, and he was down and gone. There was a bunch of choppers in there from the 1st Cavalry Division. They heard it, saw what happened, loaded up, went around, sprayed the whole area. I don't know if they got the sniper or not, but it's one of those things.
Mhm. So, that was your first experience with loss of life situations?
Yes.
Was there many experiences like that? Or was it few and far between?
Not too many that you want to remember about.
Yeah.
Just they happen, and you don't want to become too good of friends with people because you never knew from one minute to the next if they were going to be there or not. So you kind of kept quiet and kept to yourself, kept stuff bottled up, tried to do the job you're trained to do the best you could, and whatever was going to happen would happen.
So did you find it difficult not being able to get close to people, and then also having the pressure of the enemy that close?
There was some pressure, but you know, our hooch back in our area, there was 6 of us in there, and we were all pretty close in there because that's where we lived when we weren't on duty. And I got to know them pretty well, but once they rotated back to the States, you never heard of them again. You never saw them or anything else. They were gone, vanished like they never even were there that you knew.
You think that's fairly common with service?
Yes, that's very common for Vietnam. World War II veterans came back to the States on ships, and it took several weeks or a month or longer to come back. They came back as a unit, and they knew all the guys in the unit, and they could decompress and talk to each other about their problems. Where Vietnam, you couldn't. You were out in the field, or you're on the plane, or you're on a chopper, or you're somewhere one day, and your orders come down and say, in the morning or tonight you're going to be on this plane heading back to the States. Be here, fly out. You flew out with a whole plane load of strangers that you didn't know, and nobody really talked to because they didn't know each other. They didn't really want to try to get close again. And when we got back to the States to be discharged, I was a staff sergeant or an NCO, and they separated us there. NCOs went to one barracks to sleep and process out, and enlisted went to another one for the same thing, and officers went to another one. And you were kind of isolated that way.
So do you think that would make the war a lot more difficult to deal with after coming home?
Oh,
Being
yes.
separated that way?
Yes.
Do you think a lot of...
If you had friends you were coming back that you served with, you could talk about it and get your feelings out. But if you don't know somebody, you're just sitting next to a stranger on the plane, and that's it. You can joke around or whatever, but...
Were those plane rides integrated with civilians, or was it strictly military?
No, it was strictly military.
Okay, because I know a lot of civilians here were against the war, so I also feel like people nowadays don't understand or know what Vietnam was fought over. There's a lot of confusion with that. I know it was a war between the North and South, the Civil War, that we helped on, but I think a lot of people would like to know what exactly you think we were there for, what your reasoning for being there would be.
Originally, we got in to stop the spread of communism in another country, to protect our country. But later on, as we went through, we saw that wasn't really what was going on. As you were there longer and learned different things, it was a money-making setup for all the people back in the United States for products they were sending to Vietnam, specially designed material through government contracts that they got paid for. They pumped up the prices to make more money at the expense of all the GIs that got killed over there.
Yeah, the more I get involved in researching these sort of subjects, I'm finding that a lot of the same companies are producing the weapons, food, pretty much everything that goes on behind the scenes and profiting from all these wars.
Right.
So it seems like it's more so today, but do you think that there was a starting point for that, or if it was just all about money to begin with, or a lot to do about money to begin with?
I don't think it was all about money to begin with. We had good intentions, or I don't know who had the good intentions, whether the young guys did, the politicians did, or what. But later on it became just another opportunity for these people to get rich and promote themselves through the political arena. I could tell you stuff like LBJ was the president at the time, and once a week we had LBJ beef from his ranch, because his ranches were selling beef to the government. His wife, Lady Bird Johnson, had numerous shares in Bell Helicopter Corporation, which made Huey helicopters for Vietnam. She profited there, he profited from that, and it just kept rolling downhill. Everybody had their fingers in some kind of deal to make money, like canned food, sea rations, all this stuff. The sea rations, we were eating sea rations from World War II yet. So evidently they thought World War II was going to last a lot longer than they thought if they were still feeding them us in Vietnam.
Do you think that the profiting started with Vietnam, or do you think it, because I feel like with World War II, that fight was actually against evil with stopping like the spread of
World War
communism.
II had a lot of stuff going on too. A lot of companies in the United States were still furnishing products to Germany. And that wasn't right. That should have been treason right there. A lot of companies still fund both sides of a war with materials, weapons, food, whatever. They don't look at the cost of the lives, they look at the profit for them. And if they're feeding both sides or storing munition to both sides, they can make out both ways. It's a very political thing, and a lot of Vietnam veterans say, we never lost the war, the politicians did, because they don't know how to fight a war.
Do you think the profiting from war was capitalized on after the start of the war, or do you think Vietnam and a lot of similar wars were started just for profit?
A lot of it had to do with profits. A lot of it had to do with just maybe two pissed off people that didn't like each other to decide they were going to go to war. And one side can talk the other side into doing something to agitate it, and back and forth, and then they get the people behind them, and the next thing you know, you have a war. War, you don't win anything. Nothing. The only thing you do is you bury people, and you ruin lives for generations to come. But if I had to do it all over again, I'd probably do it all over.
Why would that be?
Just for the sake that I feel that I should. It would be my duty. It wouldn't be to profit or anything else. But I lost a lot of friends over there, and it's sad to think of what they missed out on.
Yeah.
never fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, husbands, nothing like that.
And you built a memorial on that.
Yes, I did.
Commemorate them.
Yeah, I built a Vietnam memorial in the backyard, and that's to honor all the friends of mine I lost over there, relatives, family members, and it gives me a little bit of closure too to see it out there. We sit out there quite a bit when the weather's nice. When it's like 10 below now, we don't do that.
Is there any specific memory that pulls up in your mind?
Yes. When I first got there in February of '67, my buddy from high school, Larry Barton, was up just a few hundred miles north of me at a base camp, and so was my cousin Gary Spittler from Glenmont, was farther north than him. And I'd written a letter to Larry in country saying that I would be up sometime in the next couple months to take a in-country trip to see him at the base. And before I could get up there to see him, my letter come back, stamped return to center, recipient KIA. And he'd been dead for 2 weeks, and I never knew it. And I wrote Mom and Dad a letter saying, Larry got killed over here, and I didn't know anything about it. Why didn't somebody let me know? And Mom wrote back that, well, we didn't want you to worry. Hell, I'm over here, what else was I gonna do? And then my cousin Jerry Spittler got killed over there. He had a tough time. He got shot once through a bag of hand grenades he was carrying, and none of them detonated. Saved his butt. Another time he got shot through a bandolero of M16 shells. Nothing detonated. He was saved, and they called him the luckiest man in Vietnam.
Okay, took a quick break. Was there anything else that you'd like anyone to know? Maybe young men and women now in high school or early 20s looking to enlist based off of their own patriotism to serve their country, and maybe base that around the thought of if it'd be worth it or not with the government wanting to profit.
I don't think kids now are interested in joining the military. I don't think most of them could handle the stress or the physical needs to get through basic training and the discipline it takes to follow orders. Because if you don't follow orders, it can cost your life later. And you always want to keep your eyes on the guy in front of you, have his back for him, watch out for each other. It's going to be a struggle for a lot of them if they want to do it, but it would be very rewarding for them in the end.
What would make it rewarding?
Well, if you go into the military, depends on what you go into, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, whatever, you can get a really good education on something you like. Jet aircraft, ships. You could be a engine repair guy on a ship. You could be anything in the world you want to be. Work on weapon systems, anything. But a lot of veterans that come out of service are qualified better than most people that haven't been in. And they can do a lot of stuff without being followed around minute to minute to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. They can get their college paid for, they can make advancements, they can make a world of difference for everybody.
So, that being said, judging from your opinion, being 79, having a lot of life that you've lived, and serving with a lot of gentlemen, do you see homeless veterans and struggling veterans now with PTSD as not being able to understand why they'd be in that situation versus the situation that you're in yourself?
I think a lot of homeless veterans are homeless because of an addiction they picked up over there, or an addiction they picked up back here, or they just don't want to try anymore. They've given up on life. Where most Vietnam veterans came back, they tried to pick up their life and settle back into what they had before. It wasn't easy to do, and some of them changed their different fields of expertise, I'd say. Instead of being a crew chief on a fighter or a helicopter, you became a lineman to work for a power company, which I did for 43 years. Very rewarding. They raised families, bought homes, contributed to society. Most of them never talked about being in Vietnam unless they were in the Legion or the VFW shooting the bull with their buddies and comparing stories and stuff like that. But most of that was just joking around. They didn't tell people where they were, where they had been, what they had done, what they'd saw, because most people wouldn't believe them anyways.
Yeah.
And it's a hard road to go when you don't have anybody to support you. Karen has been a big influence on me and the kids.
Just so the audience knows.
What's that?
Who's Karen? Just so the audience knows. Who is Karen? Just so the
Karen, that's my wife.
When
My little sweet pea.
When did you meet her?
I met her in May of '69 when I came back from Vietnam, I guess.
How did that
Oh, that was a trip. Yeah, I'd bought a new Chevelle Super Sport when I got home from Vietnam to live the dangerous life with a fast car. And one day my mother asked me to go to in town to get some bread and milk for breakfast, and I said, sure, I'll do that. And I got in the car and ran into one of my buddies, and next thing you know, we were sidetracked and ended up in Worcester. And we were driving around Worcester, and I saw this little blonde girl in a little blue Camaro convertible roaring up and down through town, so I followed her around, and for some dumb reason, she stopped. And we got out and talked to her, and everything led on to one thing or another. I met her family the same day, and we started dating, and then the '69 flood hit. And she was in West Virginia with a friend and couldn't get back right away, and I was trapped at her mother's place and dad's place in Overton with everything flooded out, and we couldn't get out. And then she showed up back home finally, but I was gone for several days. All the phones were down and nobody could contact anybody, and Mom and Dad thought I was dead because I was listed on the radio as missing. Nobody knew where I was at, so when I did show up, it was a big treat for everybody. I was still alive.
So, how long have you guys been together?
Oh, geez. We got married in October of '69. It's been 56 years now, I believe.
I think a lot of people my age, maybe a little older, younger, get divorces very quick. They switch jobs relatively quick now.
Oh,
average.
yes.
What's the difference between your age group and having marriages that are 40, 50 years long and careers that in the same place for 40, 50 years versus today, people having careers 1 to 5 years at one place and only staying in a relationship or marriage for a year at a time, 5 years at a time?
Well, it was different when we were growing up. Once we got married, we stayed married. We had obligations, we had priorities. I had a job that I liked. I stayed with that job even though I transferred from Columbus to Millersburg to work for the co-op. That was 43 years I spent there, and just built a family around that. And people don't understand the big difference between a job and a career. Is a job you go into work to get the paycheck. A career is a job that you like to get up and go into every morning. The pay is extra.
Yeah.
But you enjoy what you're doing. You enjoy going into work and doing what you do. You get promoted up the ladder as you go along. The pay increases come along, more responsibility. The more responsibility you have, the more you take care of your own family. And very few people when I was growing up got divorced. You know, parents never did. All my parents' friends never did. You know, no matter how tough they got, they stayed together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
And companies at that time were established, and they knew they were going to be around a long time. Just like the co-ops are, the power companies, the gas companies, a lot of companies in Worcester that we thought would be there forever are gone. They became outdated and dissolved, like Rubbermaid and the place that made the dinnerware and stuff up there, the metal fabric or whatever it was. And they just went out of business, and people had been there 20, 30 years were all of a sudden out on the street and looking for another job. And other companies came in and hired them, but it just wasn't the same thing. They lost, you know, a lot of time and years in the service of that company, and then they were dumped like so much trash. So,
well,
and a lot of people now just don't want to work. They're relying on the free handout and the government subsidies, and government subsidies were not designed for a lifetime of taking care of people.
yeah.
It was a temporary fix to help you between jobs. I know growing up we had people on, well, it wasn't called welfare then, it was called something else at the time. But they got food stamps and all this other stuff, and they got to where they accepted that every month. So they didn't work anymore. They didn't even look for jobs. And now they're like into their second, third, and fourth generation of people that are on welfare or some kind of subsidy that they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
They're just too lazy to work.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all I got. If there's anything you want to add.
Not really, other than an honor to be here,
Yeah.
an honor to be interviewed. Thank you very much, Logan.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for having me on, and
Okay,
appreciate
very
the
good.
service.
Thank you.
Thank
Come
you.
back anytime.